Halv saw the skies burning, ships aflame, and a throne carved from dragon bone. But fate is carved by those who dare wield it. Draug's bloodline, bound to the ancient heart of the land and sea, would ensure that the Heartspire would be his. A lineage long cursed to walk the shadow between worlds now called him to claim the prize. He would unlock its power and ascend. No one would stand in his way. His fleet was ready. His generals were poised. His soldiers were trained. And his mind was set. There would be no mercy, no retreat, only victory. He rose not to conquer, but to balance. The sea had offered its rage. Halv had accepted. They had come far. From the ashes of Avara to the ruins of Drelnar, across blizzards, shades, and betrayal. But now the tide bore them toward reckoning. Below the ocean, the Heartspire whispered, not in words, but in visions. Halv saw the skies burning, ships aflame, and a throne carved from dragon bone. But fate is carved by those who dare wield it. The Heartspire was beneath, and it would not yield to the pure, only the worthy. The warships were not merely sailing, they were summoned. Fueled by the pact of ash and flame that Draug had etched into his soul. This would not be war, it would be legend. Halv did not yet hold the Heartspire, but he had something the Dragon King could not steal. Resolve, born not of rage, but memory. The storm would not decide the victor, only the heart. The sea, once cradling, now roared like a vengeful god. The calm before the storm had passed. Now came the reckoning. He had no warship, no army, no gods to call, but Halv had fury and a reason. Sometimes that was all the world needed to change, but even fire can drown. He lifts a gauntlet, encrusted with obsidian and old blood, and clenches it. Beneath the fleet, the ocean rumbles. The Heartspire had awakened, but it was not alone. Something else had slumbered in those depths, bound by kings now dust, and gods long silent. As Halv slays the enemy captain and drives the ship into retreat, a shadow rises beneath his feet. The ocean surges unnaturally. Eira screams his name. He turns and sees it, an ancient leviathan, born from coral and bone, eyes like void stars. It opens its mouth, a cathedral of death. Beneath it, the tip of the Heartspire, now visible. In the silence before time, when stars still whispered secrets, a hidden path was carved, one only the curious ever find. You've stepped onto that path. This is Mystic Horizons. If your spirit yearns for forgotten gods, ancient realms, and untold tales, subscribe, and let the myth begin. Be claimed, not while that lived. She had seen this beast once before. In the memory of her drowned mother, this creature had devoured an entire coastal city as a warning. Not out of hunger, but command. It cannot be slain by sword, she whispered, barely heard through the wind, but it can be remembered. Eira dropped to her knees, summoning an ancient rite of recall. Not an attack, but a memory pull, to force the Leviathan to remember its original vow to protect the flame, not those who would destroy it. As Halv stared into the abyss, he understood this was not just a war of swords. It was a war of memory, of truth, and only one of them had the right to awaken it. There comes a moment when a man ceases to chase his destiny and begins to wear it. The sea splits as Halv dives, not just into water, but into history, into myth. The lightning still clings to his sword, Stormfang, illuminating the way as he slices downward, trailing bubbles and burning resolve. Above, the battle has turned into a roiling chaos of waves and fire, but down here, there is only silence, and the pull of the Heartspire. Each stroke through the dark pushed Halv farther from the world of men, and closer to what he was always meant to be. He reaches the ruins at the ocean floor. Half of an ancient city, long swallowed, crumbled around the Heartspire, its jagged crystalline crown still glowing faintly through centuries of pressure. Glyphs shimmer across its base like it still dreams, but something else is waiting. Not the Leviathan, someone. He who dares claim the Heartspire must first earn its memory. Suddenly, Halv is no longer underwater. He is in a long-forgotten throne room. Stormfang is gone, his armor replaced with ceremonial leathers. Around him, ghostly warriors kneel, his ancestors. He is forced to watch as they betray the Heartspire, offering it to the darkness to preserve their reign. The flame was not lost, it was traded. The spirit speaks, its only words. What will you trade? Halv responds with silence, but his hand clenches into a fist. He does not run from the shame. He walks through it, accepts it. He does not seek the Heartspire to rule, but to restore. The memory fades, and the crystal begins to glow brighter. While Halv descends into memory, Eira is holding the line. Drakmir's generals have landed on the main ship. One, the Siren Knight, glides across the deck in an armored dress of black scales and teeth. She summons tidal blades, raining them down on the remaining crew. Eira, drained but standing, forms a barrier of sea foam and ice. The chants tear at her throat, but her eyes remain locked on the water, on Halv. Even the storm paused to see what would rise from the deep. Back below, Halv reaches out and places his hand on the Heartspire. A pulse erupts from the crystal. A shockwave of energy tears upward through the ocean, parting it for just an instant, revealing the path between water and sky. The Leviathan uncurls, but instead of attacking, it bows. The Heartspire had not chosen a conqueror. It had chosen a witness and a weapon. When the deep chose Halv, it did not choose gently. It chose to make war with the sky. The sea erupts. From the chasmic depths, the water parts, a colossus of light and tide rising at its center. Halv emerges, no longer merely mortal. Eira watches from the helm, lips parted in awe. Behind her, the surviving crews rally, fear turning into fibered faith. He rose not to conquer, but to balance. The sea had offered its rage. Halv had accepted. Drock does not flinch. On his flagship, the Iron Maw, he raises one hand. His generals flank him, faces blank, waiting for the signal, and then fire. Eira doesn't wait in the background. On her own skiff, she channels the cold fury of the icebound north. Her hands swirl with frost, and a bridge of glacial shards explodes outward beneath her feet, letting her sprint across the sea. She reaches the enemy's midship, but one of Drock's shadow generals waits. Blades clash, magic bursts like thunderclaps. She had walked the ruins of her people. Now she would make sure no ruin touched what remained. As Halv carves through a fleet of black sails, he begins to realize the Heartspire doesn't just give power, it gives knowledge. He sees the enemy's movements seconds before they happen, feels the pain of the waves when Drakmir's ship carves them, knows when Drakmir will strike, and yet something else lingers. A vision, a warning. The Heartspire is not complete. Suddenly, the skies darken, not from storm, but from winds. Drock arrives upon a chariot of spined shadow serpents, pulled by enslaved sky worms. He descends from above. Halv walks forward across the still water. Drock steps down from his sky throne. For the first time, they face each other. No words are spoken, but the world itself leans forward. When gods fell, men rose. But now, two men stand, with the sea itself. The sea roils beneath the clash of two great armies. On the horizon, the storm clouds swirl with unnatural intensity. Waves rise to heights that seem to defy nature, each one a reminder that Halv and Drock had finally brought their destinies to this moment. Drock stands firm, his eyes locked with Halv. The moment has come. In a flash, the air between them crackles with energy. Halv charges forward on his ship, Stormfang raised high. As the worms launch themselves at Leviathan, Halv and Drock meet in the heart of the storm. The clash of their blades is heard across the ocean, a sound like thunder. The battle between the two was not a dance of blades, but of worlds colliding. Halv, driven by vengeance, by loss. Drock, consumed by his quest for power, for domination. Neither would yield. As the battle rages, Eira stands alongside Halv, her ice magic crashing against Drock's dark magic. She moves with grace, her spells sharp and deadly. But then, in a moment of horrible clarity, Drock's spear pierces her side. She falls, gasping for breath as Halv's world shatters. The weight of Eira's death is like a chain around Halv's heart. The storm rages harder as the rage within him builds. But with it comes a terrible truth, a heart divided, a spirit torn. Can one man fight the storm without losing himself to it? Halv, witnessing the brutal death of Eira, feels his power surge with rage. The ocean responds. Waves slam against the ships, pulling at the soldiers, dragging them into the depths. Leviathan roars in agony as it struggles against the storm's force. But Drock, seeing the chaos, does not back down. Instead, his willpower magnifies. Just as Halv is about to strike Drock down, something shocking occurs. The Heartspire in Halv's chest cracks. It fractures under the immense power of the storm, the balance of the world teetering on the edge. Drock laughs. sensing victory. You never understood, Halv. You were never meant to control the storm. It was meant to consume you. Droch had known it all along. The Heart Spire, the key to all of Halv's power, was not a gift. It was a curse, and Halv's final moments were tied to it. But just as Droch readies for the final blow, Halv's eyes flare with determination. The Heart Spire may be breaking, but Halv is not. Halv and Droch are locked in unrelenting combat, each blow sending ripples through the very fabric of the storm. And then, in a moment of sheer brilliance, Halv channels all of his energy into Stormfang, shattering the Heart Spire inside him. The blast of power rips the sky apart, sending shockwaves of energy that destroy the worms, break Droch's forces, and cause Leviathan to flee into the depths. Halv's sacrifice is complete. The Heart Spire, destroyed, unleashes the raw power of the storm, and with it, the end of Droch's reign. Droch, realizing too late, tries to retreat, but the storm pulls him down. The sea rises up, swallowing him whole, and in an instant, he is gone, his screams echoing across the waves. But Halv, his body ravaged by the storm's energy, stumbles forward. Eira's body is still at his feet, her spirit lost to the ocean. He falls beside her, his breath ragged as the storm calms around him. The battle is over, but the price has been paid. The storm will settle, but Halv's soul, broken by loss and by the weight of the Heart Spire's curse, will never be the same. The storm that had once raged so violently begins to subside. Halv stands alone in the silence, the once powerful ocean now eerily calm. The Heart Spire lies shattered, its power dispersed into the sea, never to be controlled again. And as Halv watches the horizon, he realizes the battle was not just for power, but for the price of the soul. Droch's ambition had led him to this, and Halv's grief had set him free. But the future remains uncertain, for the storm is always watching, and there will always be those who seek its power. The tale may rest, but its echoes linger beyond the veil. If these legends speak to you, don't let them fade into shadow. Like, subscribe, light the beacon, and walk with us deeper into the myth where new realms awaken.